Imagine a world where the Cuvier's dwarf caiman, the scarlet macaw, the red achoy, the zebra canary, the leafcutter ant, and the black tiger prawn exist.
Okay, I will admit I did a terrible job at explaining this last time, but speculative evolution. Seed worlds are, well, seeded worlds. They have Earth life that has been either moved by aliens or a higher being that we do not understand. Future evolution is just the future of the world, usually missing humans. Alien life is alien life, completely alien worlds. Now, with that out of the way, how on earth does seed worlds and all of that matter when I've stated this one as a seed world?
Well, it is to point out some options that I have in case this Seed World project ends before I want it to, and if it doesn't do well, so that my options are open and widespread so that I don't have to completely rely on this project and create more. Now, with the boring stuff out of the way, let's get to the future evolution critters that I've teased. Here we have the river dragon at 140 pounds. This carnivorous descendant of the Cuvier's dwarf caiman is the apex predator of the riverways for now. It took the get bigger or go home motto as its main source of why it evolved to be this way, as was food growing. Now, here we have the Terra crocodilla imperator, meaning land crocodile emperor. At 160 pounds, this carnivore hunts the large descendants of the red achoy that litter the open forests and mangrove swamps that it loves to hunt in. It is primarily a large carnivore. Now let's go over the land caiman. Caiman specifically adapted to land. This is the red-headed Terra caiman. At 60 pounds, this carnivore hunts the larger descendants of the red achoy, such as the red capybara, which will be shown later in the video. It has its red head as a mating display, similar to its cousin, the wonderfully named teal-headed tree caiman. At an honest 25 pounds, this carnivore, being a descendant of the aforementioned red-headed caiman, is one of the only animals that is known to hunt birds out of their nests that has yet to evolve that isn't a bird itself. It is also related to the silver Terra caiman. At an honest 120 pounds, this carnivore hunts everything it can get its mouth around, from birds to smaller relatives of its, similar to the aforementioned teal-headed tree caiman and the red capybara and other descendants of the red achi. This is a massive carnivore that is definitely dangerous. Now, here we have the emerald-headed caiman. At 200 pounds, it is not a carnivore. Rather, it is adapted to become a herbivore, eating rooty plants, nuts, fruits, bark, and other woody plants that descendants of the red achoy have yet to evolve to eat properly. Now, here we have the Euclops huon, meaning small beast in Greek. The other names have been Latin, but this one is a omnivore, eating everything it can. It specifically likes to eat the eggs of its larger relatives, such as the river dragon, the red-headed Terra caiman, the teal-headed tree caiman, and other species. It is only 10 pounds compared to its relatives. Okay, so now there's another chapter to this already long-ass video. Great. Stick with me here. Meet the red capybara. At 200 pounds, this herbivore eats grasses, fruits that fall from trees, nuts, and other plants that fall from the trees. It is a descendant of the red achi and is currently one of the largest species. Now, it is less aggressive than its brute cousin, the red bruiser. At 120 pounds, this herbivore eats the same things as its cousin, but is smaller due to competition with its cousin. It has a keratinous sheath on its head that is given it its name, the red bruiser. It uses its head to hit predators and defeat them. It also has spikes on the end of its tail, which are less useful in combat, but are still used to defend itself. Now we have the ocean achoy. It eats seaweeds and plants that have grown in extreme abundance, with only the black tiger prawn eating them. It is one of the key factors and actually eats the descendants of the tiger prawn and is rather abundant, with its cousin, the whale achoy, being its only real competition. But they do eat separate things. As you can see, it says prawnivore. It eats the descendants of prawn that became very krill-like. It is also 3 tons due to this massive diet, being very similar to whales in size and appearance. Meet the buffalo prawn. At an honest 10 pounds, this herbivore is the descendant of the black tiger prawn. It is eaten by the ocean achoy and is actually evolving a more highly developed respiratory system and gets most of its calories from seaweed, but it eats on land as well. Now we have the krill prawn. Eaten by the ocean prawn, it eats macroplankton and microorganisms that live on the planet. It gets its pink color due to not needing to be too defensive due to their main defense strategy being large numbers. Here we have the blue whale prawn. At 300 pounds, this herbivore eats exclusively seaweeds, algae, its smaller cousins, and microbacteria, as well as microorganisms that are very plant-like. It is one of the largest animals to come out of the planet. Meet the blue macaw. At a decent 30 pounds, this omnivorous descendant of the scarlet macaw is a primarily omnivorous animal, primarily eating nuts, some fruits, and other bird eggs, as well as eggs of reptiles, such as the Cuvier's dwarf caimen and other species they're able to get their hands on. And now to the scarlet hummingbird. At an honest 1 pound, this nectivore, the descendant of the scarlet macaw, is the only animal, the only pollinator on the entirety of the planet that spreads the seeds of everything and just spreads pollen and makes sure that plants, reproduce and stuff. Now we have the nutcracker macaw. Completely a seed eater at 25 pounds. It's one of the larger ones. It is one of the smarter ones as well, using tools and its beak to crack open nuts and dropping nuts from higher surfaces when they cannot get their beak to open the seed, which is one of their big threats. Now we have the scarlet moors, meaning death in Latin. At 30 pounds, this descendant of the scarlet macaw is the only fully carnivorous descendant of the parrot. It is also the only one that is fully terrestrial. It hunts crocodilians and achoy's descendants. Now we have the vulture finch. Due to the excess amount of carcasses left over by the gators and the scarlet macaw's descendants, there are inevitably a species of finch that have evolved to fill in the niche that was left vacant by vultures, hyenas, and other scavenging animals. Now we have the broad-beaked finch. As a nut eater, it eats the tougher nuts that the nutcracker macaw cannot eat. At an honest 12 pounds, it is not very successful in its niche due to there only being around 13 species of nut that the nutcracker macaw cannot eat or open via dropping from a heightened distance. Now we have the clawfinch at 25 pounds. This insectivore is another descendant of the zebra finch, and it is inspired by the mucks of Serena. At an honest 25 pounds, it's very intelligent to some extent. Here we have the worm ant, a detritivore that eats really anything, such as dirt, nutrients, roots. It is only 0.01 ounces. Meet the largest ant to exist so far, the water ant. At 1 pound, this herbivore eats entirely seeds and seaweed. Now we have the Thanos ant, an omnivore that primarily eats leaves, but also eats some meat and other types of food. Now, this is not the end of the project or the end of the channel, but I do plan on making a lot more content than I usually do, due to my horrid schedule most of the time. So I will be updating most of that, and how much content I create daily and bi-weekly or bi-monthly, depending on how I choose to make my content, and if my brain wants to make a video at the kind of time.
Now, since I have free will, I am probably going to make a video on the raptor variants of Isla Nublar, Isla Sorna, and just multiple film canons and lores. So be prepared for that. And I will be throwing my hat into the ring of making a hybrid dinosaur at some point for the hybrid war. But the next video is very likely going to be some speculation and a redesign on the pre-existing raptors from the Jurassic franchise, such as the Tiger Raptors, the JP3 Raptors, Glowing Raptors, Caldera Raptors, and many other variations of the Velociraptor from various types of canon, various types of lore, various types of information and series that I will be doing lots of research for. And that about wraps up the video. Bye, everyone.